I stared at Jake across our kitchen table, my hands trembling as I clutched my coffee mug. The silence between us was deafening, broken only by the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. 10 years of marriage, and it had come to this. I don't understand, I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Where is this coming from, Jake? He wouldn't meet my eyes, instead focusing on a spot just over my shoulder. I'm sorry, Sarah. I can't do this anymore. We've grown apart, and I think it's time we both moved on. The words hit me like a physical blow. Moved on? Jake, we haven't even tried to fix things. We could go to counseling, take a vacation, anything. Jake shook his head, his expression hardening. It's too late for that. I've made up my mind. I want a divorce. I felt the room spinning around me. This couldn't be happening. Just last week, we'd been planning our summer vacation. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Is there someone else? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Jake's eyes widened for a split second before he schooled his features. No, of course not. This is about us, Sarah. It's just not working anymore. But I saw it. That flicker of guilt in his eyes. My stomach churned as the realization hit me. There was someone else. You're lying, I said, my voice growing stronger. I can see it on your face, Jake. Who is she? He stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. I'm not having this conversation. I'll be staying at a hotel for a few days while I figure things out. We can talk about the details of the separation later. I watched in stunned silence as he grabbed his keys and headed for the door. Just before he left, he turned back to me, his expression a mixture of guilt and determination. I'm sorry, Sarah, I really am, but this is for the best. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and I was left alone in the sudden, oppressive silence of our home. Our home. The thought sent a fresh wave of pain through me. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the empty chair across from me. Minutes or hours could have passed before the shrill ring of my phone jolted me back to reality. With shaking hands, I answered it. Hello? Sarah, it's Riley. I just saw Jake leaving your place with a suitcase. What's going on? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. He wants a divorce, Riley. He just told me and then left. What? Riley's voice rose in pitch. That bastard! I'm coming over right now. Don't you dare move a muscle, you hear me? Before I could protest, she had hung up. I set the phone down and buried my face in my hands, finally letting the tears flow freely. By the time Riley arrived, bursting through the front door without bothering to knock, I had managed to pull myself together somewhat. She took one look at me and enveloped me in a fierce hug. Oh, honey, she murmured. I'm so sorry. What happened? I recounted the conversation with Jake, my voice breaking as I reached the end. And the worst part is, I think there's someone else. He denied it, but I could see it in his eyes, Riley. He's been lying to me. Riley's expression darkened. That son of a... Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to open that bottle of wine I know you've been saving. Then, we're going to figure out exactly what that lying snake has been up to. As Riley bustled around my kitchen, pulling out glasses and uncorking the wine, I felt a small spark of something other than despair. Anger, maybe, or determination. Whatever it was, I clung to it like a lifeline. Riley, I said, my voice steadier than it had been all day. I need to know the truth. Will you help me find out what Jake's really been doing? Riley turned to me, a fierce glint in her eye. Honey, you just try and stop me. We're going to get to the bottom of this. And then we're going to make sure Jake regrets the day he ever thought about betraying you. As I took the glass of wine she offered, I realized that this was just the beginning. My life as I knew it had ended today, but a new chapter was about to start, one way or another. The morning after Jake left, I woke up with a pounding headache and a hollow feeling in my chest. Riley was sprawled on the couch, snoring softly. I padded into the kitchen, desperate for coffee, when my phone buzzed. A text from Jake. We need to talk about the house. Can we meet later? My hands shook as I typed a reply. Fine, 2 p.m. at the cafe on Main. Riley stumbled into the kitchen, her hair a mess. How you holding up, sweetie? I showed her the text. I don't know if I can face him, Riley. She squeezed my shoulder. You can, and you will, but first we need a plan. We spent the next hour plotting. Riley insisted we needed proof of Jake's affair before confronting him. Men like Jake always deny everything, she said, her voice bitter with experience. We need hard evidence. At 1:45, I walked into the cafe, my stomach in knots. Jake was already there, looking annoyingly put together. He stood when he saw me, his face a mask of concern. Sarah, I held up a hand. Save it, Jake. Let's just get this over with. We sat in awkward silence stretching between us. Jake cleared his throat. I think we should sell the house, split the proceeds. I stared at him, incredulous. The house my grandmother left me? The one we've lived in for 8 years? You can't be serious. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. It's the fairest way, Sarah. We both invested in renovations. With my inheritance money, I snapped. No, Jake. The house stays with me. You can have the cabin up north. His eyes widened. But that was my dream retirement spot. Well, dreams change, don't they? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Just like how you changed your mind about our marriage. As I stormed out, I heard him call after me, but I didn't look back. My phone buzzed again as I reached my car. Another text from Jake. I'm sorry. Can we please talk about this rationally? I ignored it, dialing Riley instead. You were right, I said when she answered. He's trying to take the house. Riley's voice was steel. That's it. We're calling in the big guns. My cousin's a private investigator. He'll find out what Jake's really up to. I don't know, Riley. Isn't that a bit extreme? Honey, he's trying to take your grandmother's house. Nothing's too extreme now. I hesitated, then made a decision. Okay, do it. That evening, Riley's cousin Mark came over. He was all business, asking pointed questions about Jake's habits, schedule, and recent behavior. Any new hobbies? He asked. Changes in routine? I thought hard. He started going to the gym more, said he wanted to get in shape for our anniversary trip to Hawaii. Mark nodded, making notes. And how often does he work late? At least twice a week now. He says the firm's busy with a big case. Riley snorted. Yeah, right. The only case he's working on is how to hide his affair. Mark held up a hand. Let's not jump to conclusions. I'll tail him for a few days, see what turns up. As he left, I felt a mix of relief and dread. What if Jake really was cheating? Could I handle the truth? Riley must have sensed my unease. She pulled me into a hug. Whatever happens, I've got your back. We'll get through this together. I nodded, fighting back tears. Thanks, Riley. I don't know what I'd do without you. Just then my phone rang. It was my mother, Grace. Sarah, honey, I just ran into Jake at the grocery store. He looked awful. What's going on? I took a deep breath. It was time to tell her everything. As I recounted the events of the past 2 days, I could hear the shock in her voice. Oh, sweetheart, she said when I finished. I'm coming over right now. You shouldn't be alone. As I hung up, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at Jake, gratitude for Riley and my mom, and a growing determination to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Riley squeezed my hand. Ready for whatever comes next? I nodded, my jaw set, ready as I'll ever be. The doorbell rang just as Riley and I were finishing our second bottle of wine. My mother, Grace, swept in, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the late hour. She took one look at me and pulled me into a fierce hug. Oh, sweetheart, she murmured. I'm so sorry you're going through this. I clung to her, inhaling the familiar scent of her perfume. For a moment, I felt like a little girl again, safe in my mother's arms. But reality came crashing back as we settled in the living room. So, Grace said, her eyes sharp, tell me everything. I recounted the whole sordid tale, Jake's sudden announcement, the suspicion of an affair, and our plan to hire a private investigator. With each word, my mother's expression grew darker. Sarah, she said when I finished. I know you're hurting, but are you sure this is the best way to handle things? Riley bristled. What do you mean? Jake's clearly cheating. We need proof. Grace held up a hand. I understand the impulse, believe me. But revenge isn't the answer. Trust me, I've been where you are. I stared at her, shocked. What? Mom, you and Dad were married for 40 years before he passed. What are you talking about? She sighed, suddenly looking every bit her 63 years. Your father wasn't my first husband, Sarah. I was married briefly in my 20s to a man named Robert. He did exactly what Jake's doing to you. The room fell silent as I processed this bombshell. Why didn't you ever tell me? It was a painful chapter in my life, Grace said softly. I wanted to forget it. But now, seeing you go through the same thing, I think it's time I shared what I learned. She leaned forward, taking my hands in hers. I was so angry when I found out about Robert's affair. I wanted to destroy him, to make him feel as hurt as I did. But you know what? All that anger and bitterness, it only hurt me in the end. Riley scoffed. So what, Sarah's just supposed to let Jake walk all over her? No, Grace said firmly. She needs to stand up for herself. Absolutely. But there's a difference between protecting yourself and seeking revenge. One heals you, the other keeps the wound open. I felt torn. Part of me wanted to listen to my mother's wisdom, but another part craved the satisfaction of catching Jake red-handed. "What did you do?" I asked hesitantly. Grace smiled sadly. "I focused on myself. I went back to school, made new friends, built a life I was proud of. And you know what? That was the best revenge of all. Robert's affair stopped mattering because I had moved on to something better." As her words sank in, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe there was a way through this that didn't involve sinking to Jake's level. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Mark, Riley's PI cousin. My heart raced as I answered. "Sarah? I've got something you need to see. Can you meet me tomorrow morning?" I agreed, my mouth dry. As I hung up, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Pale, disheveled, eyes red from crying and drinking. Was this really who I wanted to be? Grace seemed to read my thoughts. "Whatever that PI found, remember that you have a choice in how you respond. You're stronger than you know, Sarah. Don't let Jake's actions define you." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of anticipation and dread. Tomorrow would bring answers, but were they answers I truly wanted? As Grace and Riley argued about the merits of confrontation versus taking the high road, I slipped out onto the porch. The cool night air cleared my head a bit. I stared up at the stars, remembering all the nights Jake and I had spent out here, planning our future. How had it all gone so wrong? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jake. "Can we talk? Please?" I hesitated, my finger hovering over the reply button. Whatever Mark had found, whatever Jake had done, I knew one thing for certain. After tomorrow, nothing would ever be the same again. I met Mark at a small diner on the outskirts of town, my stomach churning with anxiety. He was already there, a thick manila envelope on the table in front of him. "Sarah," he greeted me solemnly, "I want you to prepare yourself. What I found, it's not pretty." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were photos, dozens of them, Jake with a young woman, laughing over dinner, walking hand in hand in the park, kissing outside an apartment building I didn't recognize. "Her name is Lily," Mark said gently. "She's 23, works as a paralegal at Jake's firm." The world tilted on its axis. I knew Jake had been distant, but this was a full-blown affair, right under my nose. "There's more," Mark continued, his voice hesitant. "I followed the money trail. Jake's been siphoning funds from your joint account into a separate one. It looks like he's been planning this for months." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not only was Jake cheating, but he was also stealing from me. The betrayal cut deep, leaving me raw and bleeding. "I need air," I gasped, stumbling out of the diner. Outside, I leaned against the wall, gulping in deep breaths. My phone buzzed, another text from Jake. "Sarah, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything." Anger surged through me, hot and fierce. Before I could think better of it, I hit the call button. "Explain," I hissed when he answered. "Explain how you've been screwing your 23-year-old paralegal, or how you've been stealing money from our account." Jake's sharp intake of breath was audible. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter how I know," I cut him off. "What matters is that I do. It's over, Jake. Don't bother coming home. I'll have your things sent to your little girlfriend's place." I hung up, my whole body shaking. Part of me wanted to break down and cry, but a stronger part, a part I barely recognized, was filled with a cold, determined fury. I drove to Riley's place in a daze. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "He did it, didn't he?" she asked softly. "That bastard actually cheated." I nodded, collapsing onto her couch, with a girl barely out of college. "And he's been stealing money, Riley, planning his escape for months." Riley's face darkened with rage. "I'll kill him. I swear to God, I'll—" "No," I interrupted, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. "No, we're not going to do anything rash. We're going to be smart about this." Riley raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, my mother's words echoing in my mind. "I mean, we're not going to sink to his level, but we're not going to let him walk all over me either. I want what's rightfully mine, and I want him to face the consequences of his actions." A slow smile spread across Riley's face. "Now that's the Sarah I know and love. What's the plan?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts. First, I'm calling the best divorce lawyer in town. Then, we're going to the bank to freeze our joint accounts. And after that, I paused, a mix of determination and fear coursing through me. After that, I'm going to confront Jake and this Lily person, face to face. Riley squeezed my hand. "Are you sure? That's going to be tough." I nodded, my jaw set. "I'm sure. I need to look them both in the eye. I need them to see that they haven't broken me." As I dialed the lawyer's number, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The life I had known was over, shattered by Jake's betrayal. But from the ashes, a new Sarah was emerging, stronger, fiercer, and ready to fight for her future. Hello, is this Caroline Hernandez? My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I need your help with a divorce case. It's complicated. As I began to explain my situation to the lawyer, I caught Riley's approving nod. Whatever came next, I knew I wasn't facing it alone. And for the first time since Jake dropped his bombshell, I felt a flicker of hope for the future. My hands shook as I dialed Jake's number. After days of avoiding his calls, I was finally ready to confront him. The phone rang once, twice, and then, Sarah? Jake's voice was a mixture of relief and apprehension. I've been trying to reach you. We need to talk about your affair with Lily? I cut in, my voice ice cold. Or about how you've been stealing money from our joint account. The silence on the other end was deafening. When Jake finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. How did you find out? That doesn't matter, I snapped. What matters is that I know everything, Jake. Every single thing. I heard him take a shaky breath. Sarah, I can explain. Save it, I interrupted. I don't want to hear your excuses. What I want is for you to meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the coffee shop on Main Street. We're going to discuss the separation of our assets, and you're going to agree to my terms. Your terms. Jake's voice rose an octave. Sarah, be reasonable. We can work this out. Work what out, Jake? I felt my anger bubbling over. How you betrayed me. How you lied to my face for months. How you were planning to leave me high and dry. How it wasn't like that, he protested weakly. Then what was it like? I demanded. Enlighten me, Jake. Tell me how sleeping with your 23-year-old paralegal and stealing our money was all just a big misunderstanding. The line went quiet again. When Jake spoke, his voice was resigned. Okay, Sarah. I'll meet you tomorrow, but please, can we keep this civil? For old time's sake? I laughed bitterly. Civil? You lost the right to ask for civility when you decided to cheat on me. Be there at 2 p.m. sharp, or I'll let my lawyer do all the talking from now on. I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding. Riley, who had been sitting beside the whole time, gave my hand a squeeze. You did great, she said softly. He didn't know what hit him. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. I just hope I can keep it together when I see him face to face tomorrow. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop early, my lawyer's advice ringing in my ears. Stay calm, stick to the facts, and don't let him manipulate you emotionally. Jake walked in at 2 p.m. on the dot, looking haggard and unkempt. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly squashed it down. Sarah, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Before we start, I just want to say how sorry I am. Save it, I cut him off. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to discuss our divorce. Jake flinched at the word divorce, but nodded. Okay, what are your terms? I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. It's all laid out here. I keep the house. It was my grandmother's after all. We split our savings 60-40 in my favor, considering the money you've already taken, and I want alimony for 2 years to help me get back on my feet. Jake's face paled as he scanned the document. Sarah, this is too much. You can't expect me to agree to all this. I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. I can, and I do. Because if you don't, Jake, I'll take this to court. I'll tell everyone, your colleagues, your clients, your family, exactly what you did, how you cheated, how you stole. Do you really want that? He stared at me, shock evident in his eyes. You wouldn't. Try me, I challenged, surprised by my own boldness. For a long moment we sat in tense silence. Then slowly, Jake reached for a pen. Where do I sign? He asked, his voice hollow. As I watched him sign the papers, I felt a strange mix of triumph and sorrow. This was it. The end of our marriage, the beginning of my new life. I hope she's worth it, I said softly as Jake stood to leave. He paused, looking back at me with pain-filled eyes. No one's worth losing you, Sarah. I see that now. As he walked away, I sat there, the signed papers in front of me, facing an uncertain future. But for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever came next, I knew I was strong enough to face it. I sat in my mother's sunlit kitchen, clutching a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. The signed divorce papers lay on the table between us, a stark reminder of how much my life had changed in just a few short weeks. You did the right thing, Sarah, Grace said softly, reaching across to squeeze my hand. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but this is the first step towards healing. I nodded, unable to find words. The confrontation with Jake had left me feeling hollow, victorious, yet somehow defeated at the same time. I just keep wondering, I finally managed. What if I had fought harder for our marriage? What if I had noticed the signs earlier? Grace's eyes flashed with a mix of sympathy and determination. Sarah, listen to me. Jake's choices are not your fault. You can't blame yourself for his betrayal. But, no buts, she interrupted firmly. Now it's time to focus on you. What do you want for yourself, Sarah? Not what Jake wanted, not what society expects, but what do you truly want? The question caught me off guard. For so long, my life had revolved around Jake. Our marriage, our shared dreams. Who was I without all of that? I don't know, I admitted, feeling lost. Grace smiled gently. That's okay. Finding yourself again after a betrayal like this takes time. But it's also an opportunity, Sarah. A chance to rediscover your passions, to build the life you've always wanted. As her words sank in, I felt a spark of something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. You're right, I said, straightening up. I've spent too long living for Jake. It's time I started living for myself. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Riley. Turn on the news. Now! Frowning, I reached for the remote and flipped on the kitchen TV. What I saw made my blood run cold. Jake's face filled the screen, looking haggard and remorseful. The ticker at the bottom read, Local lawyer admits to embezzlement, affair with junior associate. Oh my God, I whispered, turning up the volume. Jake's voice crackled through the speakers. I want to publicly apologize to my wife, Sarah, and to all those I've hurt with my actions. I've made terrible mistakes, and I'm prepared to face the consequences. The reporter took over, explaining that Jake had turned himself in, admitting to embezzling funds from his law firm to finance his affair with Lily, who was also implicated in the scandal. I felt the room spinning around me. This was so much bigger than I had realized. The affair, the stolen money. It wasn't just about our marriage anymore. Jake's entire career, his reputation, everything was crumbling. Sarah? Grace's concerned voice broke through my shock. Are you okay? I shook my head, trying to clear it. I don't know. This is all so much. What do I do now? Before Grace could answer, my phone rang. It was Caroline, my lawyer. Sarah, I assume you've seen the news, she said without preamble. This changes things. Jake's admission of guilt strengthens our position considerably. We could push for a much more favorable settlement now. I listened numbly as Caroline outlined our options, my mind reeling. Part of me wanted to seize this opportunity, to make Jake pay for every ounce of pain he'd caused me. But another part remembered the broken man I'd seen in the coffee shop, the husband I'd once loved. Sarah? Caroline's voice cut through my thoughts. What do you want to do? Thus, I looked at Grace, who was watching me with a mixture of concern and pride. Her earlier words echoed in my mind. What do you truly want? In that moment, I realized I was standing at a crossroads. The path I chose now would define not just the outcome of my divorce, but the kind of person I wanted to be moving forward. I need some time to think, I told Caroline, my voice steadier than I felt. Can you give me until tomorrow to decide? As I hung up, I met my mother's gaze, feeling the weight of the decision before me. Mom, I said softly, I think I need your advice now more than ever. Grace nodded, her eyes full of understanding. Of course, sweetheart. Let's figure this out together. As we settled in for a long conversation, I knew that whatever I decided, it would be a choice that I could live with. Not just for now, but for the rest of my life. My heart pounded as I stood outside Jake's office building, Riley and Mark, the private investigator, flanking me. Despite my mother's advice to take the high road, I couldn't shake the need for closure, for answers. Jake's public confession had only intensified my resolve. Are you sure about this, Sarah? Riley asked, her voice tinged with concern. I nodded, steeling myself. I need to do this, for me. We entered the building, the receptionist's eyes widening as she recognized me. Mrs. Mitchell, it's Miss Thompson now, I corrected her, my voice steady. I'm here to see Jake. She hesitated, then nodded, buzzing us through. As we approached Jake's office, I heard raised voices. One I recognized as Jake's, the other younger, female, Lily. You promised me everything would be okay, Lily was saying, her voice trembling. Now my career is ruined and it's all your fault. I pushed the door open without knocking. Jake and Lily froze, their faces a mixture of shock and guilt. Sarah, Jake breathed, his face paling. What are you doing here? I stepped forward, my gaze moving between them. I came for the truth, Jake, all of it. No more lies, no more half-truths. Lily's eyes widened as she looked at me, then back at Jake. You're his wife? But you said you were divorced. The pieces clicked into place. He told you we were already divorced? I asked her, my voice softer than I expected. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. He said he was free to be with me, that we could start a new life together. I turned to Jake, anger and pity warring within me. Is there anything you haven't lied about? Jake slumped into his chair, looking utterly defeated. I'm sorry, he whispered. I never meant for it to go this far. The affair, the embezzlement, it all spiraled out of control. Mark stepped forward, placing a folder on Jake's desk. We have all the evidence here, Mr. Mitchell. Bank statements, hotel receipts, everything. Jake didn't even glance at the folder. I know. That's why I turned myself in. I couldn't live with the guilt anymore. Lily let out a choked sob. What about me, Jake? What am I supposed to do now? I felt a sudden unexpected surge of sympathy for her. She was young, naive, manipulated by Jake just as I had been. Lily, I said gently, none of this is your fault. Jake lied to both of us. She looked at me, surprise evident in her tear-streaked face. You don't hate me? I shook my head. No, we're both victims here. Jake stood up abruptly. Sarah, please, I know I don't deserve it, but is there any way we can work this out? I'll do anything. Stop, I interrupted, holding up a hand. It's too late for that, Jake. You've made your choices, and now we all have to live with the consequences. I turned to Riley and Mark. I think we're done here. We have what we came for. As we turned to leave, Jake called out one last time. Sarah, I truly am sorry for everything. I paused at the door, looking back at the man I once loved, now a stranger to me. I know, Jake, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. We left the office, the weight of the confrontation settling over us. As we stepped out into the sunlight, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and an unexpected sense of freedom. Riley squeezed my hand. You okay? I took a deep breath, realizing that for the first time in months, I actually was. Yeah, I think I am. It's over. Really over. As we walked away from the building, I felt like I was leaving behind more than just Jake and our failed marriage. I was leaving behind the old Sarah, the one who had lost herself in trying to be the perfect wife. Now, standing on the precipice of an uncertain future, I felt a glimmer of excitement. It was time to rediscover who I was, what I wanted, and the life I deserved. So, Riley said, a mischievous glint in her eye, what's next for the new and improved Sarah Thompson? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. I don't know yet, but I can't wait to find out. 6 months after the confrontation with Jake, I stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at me. Gone was the defeated, heartbroken shell I'd become. In her place stood someone stronger, more confident, with a spark in her eyes that had been missing for far too long. The divorce was finalized last week, and today marked a new beginning. I was hosting a small gathering, a rebirth party, as Riley had dubbed it, to celebrate my fresh start. As I put the finishing touches on my makeup, the doorbell rang. My mother's voice floated up the stairs. I'll get it, Sarah? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. This wasn't just a party. It was a statement, a declaration of my independence and my determination to move forward. Downstairs, I found Riley and my mother chatting animatedly. They both turned as I entered, their faces lighting up. Oh, sweetheart, Grace said, her eyes misty. You look radiant, Riley whistled. Hot damn, girl! If I wasn't already married... I laughed, feeling a warmth spread through me. These two women had been my rocks, my support system through the darkest days of my life. I couldn't imagine having made it through without them. As more guests arrived, colleagues, friends, even a few of Jake's family members who had chosen to stand by me, I felt a sense of surrealism. Was this really my life now? Midway through the evening, Riley clinked her glass, calling for attention. I'd like to propose a toast, she announced. To Sarah, the strongest, most resilient woman I know. You've been through hell and come out shining. Here's to new beginnings. A chorus of, to Sarah, echoed through the room. I felt tears pricking at my eyes, overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding me. As the party wound down, I found myself on the back porch, gazing up at the stars. My mother joined me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. I'm so proud of you, she said softly. You've handled this with such grace and dignity. I leaned into her embrace. I learned from the best, Mom. Thank you for showing me how to be strong. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Grace spoke again. You know, Sarah, life has a funny way of surprising us. Just when we think we've lost everything, we often find ourselves. Her words struck a chord deep within me. She was right. Through all the pain and betrayal, I had rediscovered parts of myself I thought were long gone. I had found strength I never knew I possessed. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jake. I hope your party went well. I I truly am sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive me. I stared at the message, a complex mix of emotions swirling within me. Anger, hurt, and surprisingly a hint of pity. Jake had lost everything, his job, his reputation, and yes, me. But I had gained so much more than I had lost. With a small smile, I typed out a reply. Thank you, Jake. I hope you find peace. Then, after a moment's hesitation, I added, I forgive you. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing Jake's actions. It was about freeing myself from the burden of anger and resentment. I turned to my mother, feeling lighter than I had in years. You're right, Mom. Life does surprise us. And I think I'm finally ready for whatever surprises come next. Grace smiled, her eyes shining with pride and love. That's my girl. Now shall we rejoin your party? I believe Riley mentioned something about karaoke. Laughing, I linked my arm through hers. As we walked back into the house, filled with the warmth of friendship and the excitement of new possibilities, I knew that this wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning, my beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I couldn't wait to see what the future held. The Sarah who had started this journey, broken and lost, was gone. In her place stood a woman who had faced her worst fears, confronted betrayal, and emerged stronger for it. Whatever life threw at me next, I was ready. After all, I had survived the worst, and found myself in the process.